Hello and welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Anne Jibuno. The headlines. Christians celebrate Easter with messages of love and sacrifice as Pope Francis calls for end to hostilities in warring countries. Terrorists kill 44 in northern Burkina Faso. Plus, Nigerian-born Israel Adesanya knocks Alex Pereira out cold to regain middleweight title at UFC 287. Worshippers gathered around the world to mark Easter Sunday, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, as Pope Francis delivers Mass to tens of thousands of Catholics in St. Peter's Square. Charles Alpha reports.
Pope Francis opened a celebration of Mass on Easter Sunday, joined by dozens of prelates and tens of thousands of pilgrims and tourists in St. Peter's Square. Some 45,000 people had gathered by the start of the mid-morning Mass at the beginning of the Easter ceremony, inspired by the core Christian belief that Jesus rose from the dead. After his crucifixion, Francis sprinkled holy water as he recited ritual words in Latin.
Nel nome del Padre, del Figlio e dello Spirito Santo. Amen. La pace sia con voi.
E con il tuo spirito.
Fratelli e sorelle, fin dall'inizio della Quaresima.
Still recovering from a bronchitis, Francis, 86, skipped the traditional Good Friday procession at Rome Colosseum due to unreasonable cold nighttime temperature. Pope Francis was set to deliver a speech that pontiffs give on Christmas and Easter, known by its Latin name, Urbi et Orbi, which means to the city and to the world. The message is frequently an occasion to decry wars and injustices around the globe, including religious persecution. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Meanwhile, Pope Francis has underlined his deep concern over a flare-up in tensions between Israel and Palestinians as he led Easter Mass on Sunday. He said the renewed violence threatens the desired climate of trust and mutual respect needed to resume dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians as he addressed a crowd of tens of thousands gathered at St. Peter's Square. Justin Bemui reports.
As the Church celebrates the most joyous day of the liturgical year, Pope Francis presides over Mass on Easter Sunday in St. Peter's Square to mark the resurrection of Christ. Over 45,000 pilgrims filled the sunny St. Peter's Square on Easter Sunday morning. Pope Francis appeared to ask Russians to seek the truth about their country's invasion of Ukraine in his Easter message to the world on Sunday, and appealed for dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians following recent violence. Francis, 86, presided at a solemn Easter Day Mass after unseasonal cold forced him to skip an outdoor service on Friday, a precaution following his hospitalization for bronchitis at the end of March. This week has seen a surge in violence and unrest as the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan, Jewish Passover, and Christian Easter coincide. On Wednesday, Israeli police stormed the prayer hall of Al-Aqsa Mosque, Islam's third holiest site, in a pre-dawn raid aimed at dislodging law-breaking youths and masked agitators they said had barricaded themselves inside. The next day, more than 30 rockets were fired from Lebanese soil into Israel, which the Israeli army blamed on Palestinian groups, saying it was most likely Hamas, which rules the Gaza Strip. Israel then bombarded Gaza and southern Lebanon, targeting terror infrastructures that is said belong to Hamas. On Friday, 2 separate attacks left an Italian tourist and 2 British Israeli sisters dead and several injured in Tel Aviv and the West Bank. On Sunday, Israel launched artillery strikes on Syria in retaliation for rockets the army said were fired from there onto Israeli territory. Justin Bemui, NTA News.
In the meantime, Christians in Nigeria joined their counterparts across the world to celebrate Easter in thanksgiving to God for the resurrection of Jesus Christ and his victory over death. Elizabeth Omori reports.
It is a celebration of the risen Christ for Christians who gathered in churches to give thanks to God. Clergymen in their sermons reminded the faithful of the significance of Easter that transcends race, status, and creed because of the virtues Christ Jesus exhibited, which believers are expected to emulate.
What are we sacrificing to make our nation great? We may have to sacrifice our ego. We may have to sacrifice our ambition sometimes.
There should be no nepotism. There should be no segregation.
We need to be united. So unity is very, very key.
Other clergymen called for life of patriotism, sacrifice, and unity with purpose in building a stronger nation.
Things to embrace that peace and allow that peace to be resplendent in their lives.
It is essential to tolerate, forgive, and forget.
We have hope that the Lord will break every yoke and he will give life to us and our nation.
Believers rendered praises to the Lord for the supreme price Jesus paid to save mankind from sin. In Abuja, Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
As followers of Christ mark his death and resurrection, there is the renewed call for all people to imbibe the spirit of sacrifice and love. This is coming from Vice President Yemi Osinbajo as he joins other worshippers at the Aso Villa Chapel in celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
It's a day of resurrection, a day followers of Jesus Christ believe gives hope to all mankind of greater joy here and even beyond.
It was on a day like this that our salvation was sealed.
At the Aso Villa Chapel, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and wife Dolapo are among worshippers celebrating the day. Secretary to the government of the Federation, Post Mustafa and wife, are not left behind in the celebration.
Easter reveals and reminds us that when God asserts, when God declares something, he will be faithful to keep it.
Biblical record revealed that the trials of Christ while on earth was a painful experience for his followers. However, his rising from the grave on the third day is a thing worthy of celebrating with songs of hallelujah, and this they do on an annual basis.
It's a message of the amazing love of Jesus Christ, amazing love of God, that he gave up his son so that you and I will not have to pay again for our sin. So it's an amazing day, a fantastic day, and I wish you all happy Easter.
We have a duty as believers, as Christians, to make sure that everyone hears about the gospel, the redemption gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. So these are two strong messages that I will leave with Nigerians today. The need for unity, the need for brotherliness, the need for us to sacrifice for each other. That's the only way we can grow and build a sustainable country.
We must release ourselves and display that love for Nigeria and play our role and give that sacrifice, because Nigeria is a great nation. Jesus died for Nigeria, and Nigeria will rise just as Jesus has risen.
Celebrate, Jesus celebrate. From the Aso Villa Chapel, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
And joining us in the studio to give more content to the celebration of Easter this year is Femi Elarioke, lead pastor, Jesus Praise Evangelical Ministries International here in the Federal Capital Territory. You're welcome to the news and compliments of the season.
Thank you so very much.
Now, 2023 Easter is celebrated at the same time. Muslims are observing the Ramadan fast, and Jews, as well, are observing the Passover. It does appear that many parts of the world are neck deep at the moment in building stronger ties with God. Does this mean anything to you?
Yeah, definitely, because I know that God is intentional and that God is not accidental. I know God is, at this moment, passing the message across to everyone to live in harmony and to live in love. There's no accident that we are having Easter in the same period where the Muslims are fasting, where the Passover feast is being done in the Jews, to bring our attention to one unity. That, okay, we serve God who created the heaven and the earth and created all of us to live together in harmony. Yes.
All right, let's talk about Easter and the virtues of sacrifice and love. I know you've mentioned some of it, but what opportunities are there for people, especially in Nigeria, to reflect on these virtues in all their endeavors?
Yes, if we look at the celebration of Easter, you see the celebration of the sacrifice God has given to mankind. Now, Easter marks the death and the resurrection of Jesus, where Jesus died for the sin of mankind, the sin he knows nothing about, leaving us an example to follow. So this time we have the virtue of forgiveness. When Jesus was on the cross, the first statement he made was a prayer that God should forgive them, for they don't know what they do. So it's giving us a lesson, something to hold on to, that as we come in our journey on earth, we have reasons where someone will offend, where somebody will do something contrary, but we must imbibe the Spirit of Christ to forgive one another and to live in love and harmony.
Now, it has rather become a ritual to observe Easter, and indeed other religious events every year. Would you say that these observances impact the lifestyles of adherents? If not, shouldn't that be the target of the commemoration?
Yes, definitely I agree with you that it should be the target. We shouldn't just be ritualistic about it, holding festival celebration without knowing the purpose and the meaning of those festivals. I think it is the responsibilities of leaders in the church and every other religious establishment to emphasize the purpose of such celebration. That, okay, we're celebrating Easter because we are marking the commitment of God's sacrifice to mankind, and this is the reason why God has done this, so that we can imbibe and be an example and follower of what God has done. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us today, Femi Larry, lead pastor, Jesus Praise Evangelical Ministries International.
Thank you so much.
All right. At least, moving on now, at least 44 civilians were killed in 2 separate terror attacks in northern Burkina Faso, Sahel region. And Charles Alpha brings us details of this.
The attack occurred overnight in the villages of Korakau and Tondobi, located about 5 kilometers from the Setinga commune in the province of Seno Sahel region. Lieutenant Colonel Rodolphe Sogo said in a statement the provisional toll is 44 civilians, including 31 in Korakau and 13 in Tondobi. In addition, injuries and material damage were also recorded. Sogori assured residents that efforts to stabilize the area were underway by the defense and security forces. Burkina Faso battles regular insecurity posed by an insurgency that has spread from neighboring Mali in the past decade. The country recorded 1,134 deaths attributed to terrorists in 2022, a 50% jump compared to 2021, according to the latest global terrorism. The political situation in the Sahel compounds the terror challenge. A large-scale massacre last June left more than 100 dead in Setenga, a town 15 kilometers from the border with Niger. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Turkish radio television TRT is set to join the African Union of Broadcasting AUB Content Exchange Program. This is an outcome of the visit by AUB's members to the TRT World Service Headquarters in Istanbul, Turkey. Onengie Fineface reports.
Turkish Radio Television TRT World Service is initiating partnerships with broadcast organizations of countries on the African continent. The essence is to correct misrepresentations of the region by the dominant international media. This visit to TRT World Service by the Africa Union of Broadcasting avails the two partners opportunity to learn from each other on how the real stories from the African continent can be amplified to the global community.
Deliberately divided the planning into various regions so that, and we have people and journalists from those regions running those desks. That is, the idea behind that is to bring in the diversity and the context of the region. So you report your stories better, you can have a better editorial understanding.
So we'll take an African take, give an African take to the story, get Africans to give their perspective, and give also journalists from the particular countries to tell us their stories from where they are.
The AUB also sees the visit as a necessary step to understand best practices in broadcasting, learning from the TRT experience.
But what actually impressed me is the level of technology they have in their studios and the way they have arranged their newsroom and so forth, and the different types of desks and how they are coordinated.
Turkey has a lot of correspondents worldwide, and we think that if this correspondent can start sending news on our platform, it will be a very good thing for our members, and it can change the screens of our members.
Through this initiative, TRT will have access to broadcast content from the AUB Exchange platform and also make contributions of its content for use by AUB member broadcasters. Onengiye Fineface, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. We will take a break now. More stories when we return. Thanks for staying with us. Globally, economic indices are getting repositioned as gross domestic product in emerging economies such as China and India are surpassing those of fully industrialized economies. Consequently, the world powers and developing nations are now aligning towards exploring areas of mutual benefit. Kolo Mohammed reports that this is playing out in recent visits of U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Vice President Kamala Harris to Africa.
In recent times, gross domestic product GDP has grown at much higher rates in emerging markets such as China and India than in Western industrialized countries. In the advanced economies, fears of being replaced are increasing. For Africa, reapplication of engagement with the USA is predicated on expecting outright improved gain in areas of security, education, inclusivity, health, and technological application. For America, experts say it is premised on balance of power with other world superpowers.
Recent contests, whereby countries of the East, particularly in the East, yes, sort of, like Russia, trying to make new friends in Africa. China is also trying to make new friends in Africa, and that's why China is particularly giving out loans. So United States, as a leader in the West, will not just sit back and allow these newly risen countries, particularly China, to take over their former areas of influence that Africa represents.
The existing multilateral relationship between America and Africa is likely going to be accentuated into bilateral, wherein individual nations on the continent gain as much as they may be open to collaboration with America regarding availability of ways, resources, goods and services America may be interested in.
How we can leverage this visit is just to continue to play up our interests at the level of trade, patronage in trade, patronage in investment, patronage in helping to portray us not as a place of crisis, not as an insecure place, but as a place with huge markets, with huge human resource potentials.
America is a country that has modern techniques or approach to some of these problems that we have. And due to that, if we have an obsolete process of construction and they have this modern or more advanced ways of applying these materials and construction processes, then it's a very good opportunity for us to collaborate, as Africa, and for them to provide or even invest in places in Africa, to collaborate with Africans to see how we can have some levels of trainings and retrainings.
The respondents have the views that Africa must be ready if this is to revolutionize the continent. America's renewed desire to be guided not by what it can do for Africa, but rather what it can do with Africa, is a chance for Africa and Africans to quit remaining appendages of other nations and their nationals. And of course, exit remaining a destination of aid and grants, transforming into a destination of trade and investment. In Abuja, Kolo Muhammad, NTA News.
Namibia discovers third oil deposit in the southern coast of the country as Zimbabwean central bank freezes assets of 4 individuals for assisting a long-running gold smuggling and money laundering ring. Details of this and more with Musa Baba Aliyu.
The National Petroleum Corporation of Namibia announced a third oil discovery in the Orange Basin of Namibia's southern coast of the country. The discovery happened under Shell, Qatar Energy, and Namcor, who are in a joint venture. However, experts are worried that if the government does not take necessary steps to curb corruption, the country will not profit from the discovered oil. In Zimbabwe, the central bank has frozen the assets of 4 individuals who said they assisted a long-running gold smuggling and money laundering ring. The 4 people told Al Jazeera television channel that they accepted money to assist a gold smuggling and money laundering ring that has operated for the past 23 years. The 4 men, all Zimbabwean nationals, made the statement in a 4-part documentary series called Gold Mafia that first aired last month. Both the Reserve Bank and the Zimbabwean Anti-Corruption Commission refused to comment on the freezing of the assets. And from Nigeria comes a report that the government has secured $800 million from the World Bank for her fuel subsidy removal program. The money, which is equivalent to about 362 billion naira, is to be shared to 10 million households across the country as a palliative measure.
We've secured some funding, $800 million for the scale-up of the National Social Investment Program at the World Bank that will enable us to give cash transfers to the most vulnerable in our society that have now been registered in a national social register. Today, that register has a list of 10 million households. 10 million households is equivalent to about 50 million Nigerians.
And the UN Migration Agency, IOM, said around 7,700 migrants are currently stranded in Niger and are in their need of food, clean water, shelter, medical assistance, and protection.
Understand, I'm going through a trauma situation. I'm feeling pain inside my brain right now the way I'm talking to you because there's no good food. I'm not even healthy. No fish, no meat, no nothing.
Algeria pushes hundreds of migrants over the border every week, according to the reports. The majority of them are sub-Saharan Africans, but sometimes Syrians and even Bangladesh are among them. From the border, migrants need to walk for at least 15 kilometers through the desert to reach a town or a health center. The IOM has already established 7 transit centers along migration routes in Agadez and Niamey region in order to provide help to vulnerable migrants. Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
Israel Adesanya knocked Alex Pereira out cold to regain the middleweight title in the main event of UFC 287. Israel Adesanya reclaimed his middleweight title from longtime bitter rival Alex Pereira with a spectacular knockout. With his back against the cage in the round 2, Adesanya unleashed 2 crushing right hands to send Pereira to the canvas. The victory avenges 3 previous defeats for Adesanya against Pereira. The remains of the late former World Court judge and Minister of Justice Prince Abdul Jabbar Bola Sodun Ajibola has been buried in accordance with Islamic rites. Lekan Agbonde reports that prominent dignitaries, including Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and former President Olusegun Obasanjo, were at the Islamic Mission for Africa, IMA, Abeokuta, and paid tributes and last respects to the deceased who died at 89.
Former Attorney General and Minister of Justice Prince Bola Ajibola SAN, while commiserating with the legal community in Nigeria and worldwide, President Buhari notes that the outstanding lawyer and eminent jurist uses God-given knowledge, intellect, and talent to advocate justice, fairness, and equity in all his undertaking within and outside the country. President Buhari says the late Ajibola, having risen to the pinnacle of his career, took his brilliance in law practice to the International Court of Justice at The Hague, where he served meritoriously between 1991 and 1994. He was also the Nigerian High Commissioner to the United Kingdom. President Buhari also sympathizes with the government and people of Ogun State as they mourn this illustrious citizen for the educational and social development he brought to his community and environs. Similarly, President-elect Bola Tinubu has expressed his profound sadness over the demise of eminent elder statesman and international jurist Prince Bola Ajibola, while expressing his sympathy and condolences to the family of the legal luminary. Tinubu acknowledged Prince Ajibola's important contributions to Nigeria's political evolution and nation building, legal profession, and international jurisprudence. Tinubu believes Prince Ajibola will be remembered for his patriotism and love for Nigeria and his countrymen and women, regardless of their ethnic origin or religious persuasions. Meanwhile, the Federal Executive Council mourns the death of the former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Prince Bola Ajibola. Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman Presidential Transition Council, Boss Mustafa, in a condolence message on behalf of the Federal Executive Council, chronicling Prince Ajibola's contributions to the development of the legal profession locally and internationally, notes the contribution of Prince Ajibola to the development of Nigeria's educational sector as founder of Crescent University, Abeokuta, Ogun State.
And just before we go, it's 24 days to the National Housing and Population Census. Ensure you are counted. And that's the news on NTA International. We thank you for joining us. I am Anne Jibuno.